put a little historical context into this film, when it premiered, and where we are today. 1993, Philadelphia comes out with Tom Hanks, a movie about the HIV/AIDS epidemic. 1994, a little Australian film makes it big, Priscilla, Adventures, Queen of the Desert. And then 95, we have To Wong Foo, which David informed me was actually written before Priscilla. And then
older script.
And then we had Robin Williams and Nathan Lane in Birdcage in 96. But these films really were the first films that started changing the narratives about the LGBTQ community, representing us in positive light, unlike other films where we were always marginalized at the back of the bus, right, for lack of a better word. And, you know, so much progress was made after the release of these films in not only cinema but TV. Will and Grace came out, Queer as Folk. So here we are today in 2023, and obviously we've won a lot of rights, but we're living in a time in this country where we've accomplished so much, but yet we feel like we're going backwards. And we have seen more laws in this country that are being brought across state legislatures that are trying to ban drag queens, ban trans people, silence gay, and now more than ever is when we need to showcase stories like this, celebrate our pride, but have our straight allies who are here with us tonight join us in this fight for standing up, because we are under attack. The Human Rights Campaign just issued a state of emergency in the United States for the LGBTQ plus community, and that's the first time in their history that they have done that. So, you know, just putting it in context of this, you know, I know you were instrumental in helping to shape Wesley Snipes, Patrick Swayze, and John Leguizamo, and how brave at that time of three leading men, heterosexual men, to take this role. So, David, tell me, how did you turn them into drag queens?
It wasn't exclusively me. We had a really fun time. All the people at Universal, the director, and just various people who were involved with it. We had 6 weeks of rehearsals. Now, you know, you don't need 6 weeks of rehearsals. You don't need 6 weeks of rehearsals. Very rarely do you get it, and you don't really need it. But we had 5 days a week with the three main principals. Actually, we had 6 weeks. So we had Patrick Swayze alone for the first 2 weeks, and just ended up having a great time. He was a very nice, wonderful, kind, funny, open, wonderful man. The third and fourth week, we had Wesley and Patrick, and I always like to say this because the first day of rehearsal, after having had Patrick Swayze for 2 weeks, we got the first day on the third week of Wesley Snipes. We hadn't met him, no one had spoken to him, no one had seen him, nothing had happened, and he showed up in a leotard, in a short, tight, sort of pixie, hot red with orange highlights wigs, letting everyone on the set know I came to work. And then we got John Leguizamo the fifth week. So then the last, by the end of it all, we had 6 weeks of everybody, and they all came to work. There was nowhere on the set or in the rehearsal studios where you couldn't approach them, you couldn't talk to them. It was like art school. And that's the atmosphere. So I got it. Can't believe that just came up. So there were pictures that were done that, to get the part. So I worked with various friends of mine. I wasn't a drag performer, but I was a costume history and fashion design major, and I did makeup in the aisles of like Macy's and various other department stores. So I knew what to do to make it happen, and I grew up with a bunch of women who were style icons of the 60s and 70s. So I knew exactly what to do, where to pinch it, where to tie it, where to pull something. So the pictures that were used, B-Band Kidron liked them, and my pictures, more than anyone else's, were hung up in the inspirational area of the set, which was a great compliment. I wanted more money. But it was inspirational and complimentary. So then I became an anchoring identity on the set, friendly. The AD would come and say something when we were filming the bit, and when RuPaul comes down, and that was the Pamela Dennis dress, and it was written like that in the script to be the Confederate flag. But it was different size paillettes and sequins, and it was just a wood swing, and sequins and wood means you're gonna fall on your ass, and if that's coming down from the ceiling, I was like, you don't know what's gonna go on. So we ended up, at my suggestion, putting the loops on the swing, and then it was covered in cushion and then wrapped in satin that had a rubber grid on it. And that was just by chance, because I'm like, you know, it's like our first movie and we're gonna be on the set when RuPaul dies.
So you see RuPaul in the opening number, and you know, it's so ironic that, you know, this was effectively the first RuPaul Drag Race that was filmed for the screen. And the format that you see, RuPaul has come to be an American icon. Was always in our community, but now has $1 billion empire. To put the backstory on here, you know, I think a lot of people here probably don't know. One of the lead producers of this film was Steven Spielberg. So you had major Hollywood money behind this film. And some of the backstory, Beeban Kidron was the filmmaker, female British filmmaker who now is a member of the House of Lords in the UK.
Yep.
And there were apparently no men that wanted to take on directing this film. And Steven had said, she was pregnant at the time.
Like
very pregnant.
Like a good sneeze and the kid would have been here.
And Steven had said, well, if, you know, the baby comes while filming, I'll step in and direct. And ironically, the last day of filming, they flew out, this was shot in Nebraska, flew back in, and she had her son at Kennedy Airport, became an American citizen as a result of that. So they were really, Hollywood was really trying to champion inclusivity, acceptance here, and you had some real power players behind this film. It went on to be the #1 grossing film. The first 2 weeks it was out, it grossed over $36 million at the box office. So it was a commercial hit. And I understand too, I mean, I want to talk to you, you know, first of all, you looked fabulous on that stage, okay? Next to Patrick Swayze. And the name, the drag name. So I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, that Miranda Wrights was supposed to be your drag name.
That was supposed to be the character's name in the script. Was meant to be Miranda Wrights. Because it was Miranda Wrights, Rachel Tensions, and I forget what the other character that was.
Did you all get that? Rachel Tensions?
Rachel Tensions, Miranda Wright, and I can't remember what the other one was. It was another name that was, you know, political.
So, Cappuccino Commotion.
When I came out in the outfit, because no one knew what we were wearing, a lot of the talent that were performing drag queens, had their own clothes. So there was a wardrobe, and they were like, well, where, you know, what do you have? And I was like, I did this for this movie. There is no wardrobe. And they called, God, I was supposed to get his name. They called a couple of people to, you know, to see me, to try to do some different things for me. And the casting director, who's Carrie Barton, who's still a friend in my life today, said, send him over to blah, 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 PR, whoever it was. So they dressed me and hooked me up, and they got, my undergarment was a bra, corset, and thong. And then they sprayed it gold. I found Todd Oldham, that's who it was. The gown over it was Todd Oldham. It was a gold fishnet, and every connection of the fishnet had pearls. So it had a wonderful waft and weight, so it was easy to work and move, except when you walked on the runway, the back would come to the front and interlock with pearls. So, and you have to keep going until the director says stop. So there was a couple of scenes, and I can see it in the movie, but you would notice it, where I'm walking and it's caught the dress, and I just start doing this. I'm only being filmed from here because I don't have enough room for the full stride. And that's some of the laughter and tears I was having sitting on the floor in the back watching you all and watching the movie, so it was really cool.
Is it true that Haagen-Dazs Ice Cream
Yes.
actually sued
Well, they
the
had
film
to. It's
for
that-
the name, for
yes.
the cappuccino commotion
Yeah.
was also a Haagen-Dazs ice cream flavor,
Yeah,
and they
it
got
was-
sued.
That was
by
the year it
Haagen-Dazs.
came out, but it was to set a precedent, and they made it really clear to us. They apologized and explained themselves. It was a brand new flavor. When I came out in the outfit, the main compare with the red hair sweetie, the one that John Lake was almost always said looked like the lion from The Wizard of Oz. Every time she would come on stage, she would go, "Arf." And then the director was angry because we'd be howling on the left side there. She called me Cappuccino Commotion because I looked like blah, 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 caramel and such and such. And we didn't know. No one had any idea that knew that we'd be getting into legal problems. So when it came out, to keep from letting it go and then losing a potential precedent, Haagen-Dazs did sue, and Universal did pay, and Haagen-Dazs gave 100% of what they won to a gay charity.
How amazing is that?
Yeah.
So continue eating Haagen-Dazs ice cream.
They're not bad people, bad company. It was more like that horrible thing about the monster in the basement that's called business. It's just business. It's like, yeah, well, do what you gotta do. Do the right thing when you gotta do what you gotta do.
David, one of the things that's so striking about this film, you know, that as an executive director of a social justice film festival, we do, you know, work with all marginalized communities. And it was so interesting, you know, that this film points out several things. You know, I like how even in '95, they broke down the difference of
Right.
defining, you know, and explaining to people, this is cross-dresser, this is a drag queen, this is transgender, and really trying, I think, to be sensitive about the issues. The other thing that I find very interesting, and you see it as portrayed in this film, is the treatment of Noxeema Jackson as a black drag queen, and the one that's going to get the most shit, right? When they get pulled over by the police and all the rest of it, and you see it with Chi-Chi, who's Puerto Rican, and my question, you know, to you, and maybe you can also speak to Wesley Snipes' character in this film. How did this affect your career as somebody who's breaking into acting, you know, mainstream Hollywood film for you? How did that impact your career?
It was interesting. I got the film, and I had just moved back from Europe, so I didn't have that thing of gay, straight, blah, 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 blah. Acting is acting. If you play a reptile, you're not going to be stuck playing a reptile for the rest of your life if you play a cat. So there was none of that fear. I didn't have that. I was coming from 11 years of living in Europe where I was the American. I wasn't even black. I wasn't gay. I was David the American. That's what everyone called me. So when I came back, it was surprising to see at the end of the 80s what I left in 79 slide back, you know, under Reagan, under whatever it was, under the money, under the first launch of so much more wealth, how socially things got really separated. And right after this came out, you know, everyone was like, oh, you know, you're gonna do so well, this was a high profile film, your name is all over the place, here, blah, blah, blah. I was only seen for other drag roles. I mean, I was either the prostitute drag queen, I was the junkie drag queen, or the fighting drag queen, or the gay friend that lived upstairs. I was like, I can be a judge, I can be a policeman, I can be a bum that's, you know, asexual bum. And it lasted for a long time. It wasn't until around 2003, 2004, when new people came in, and we're talking, you know, nearly 10 years, that I would be seen for something else.
Wow.
Yeah. Her husband. And the other thing that I'll say, which doesn't happen much anymore, going back to filming, everyone who had one line, even one line in this movie, was sat at a table as long as this room. And we read the entire script so you could hear what every actor sounded like and what their intention was, and to work on the intention. And the 3 stars, leads, set in different areas so that they could be in the middle of people that they were working with, and it didn't keep it from being like, that's Patrick Swayze superstar, that's Wesley Snipes superstar, that's John Lucas. It was like, we're in this, you know, dirt box together, and
Their love, the love that this cast have for one another, you can't make that up. You feel it, it's palpable. You don't find films like this where the love is just so there, and it just brings so much joy. So you created that moment, and how many millions of hearts and minds Did you change by making this film? And you will continue to change by the work that you are doing. This is what the world needs. I want you to share one more story, if you'd be so inclined, because it's a special one, and then we're going to open it up for a Q&A. Because when we were doing our interview prep, seriously, we could have been on the phone for like 2 days. There's so many stories. Leather bar in Kansas City.
Okay, so we all know what a leather bar is.
Does everyone know what a leather bar is? Some people may not know.
A leather bar, it doesn't specifically have to be S&M, but it's very hyper macho in the gay.
Subculture within the gay world.
Yes, a subculture within the gay world that's very macho, very masculine, very leather, can be bondage, can be S&M, can be, a whole thing. My roommate, the same one I needed to get away from that I went to write my one-man show. He's been dating this kid for like easily 3 to 4 months, and we're just like, I'm on the floor because I'm always on the floor. I sat on the floor in the back to watch this and watch all of you. And I'm in the blanket, and he and my roommate are on the couch, and we're watching, anything, whatever it was. And he said something about, like when David did To Wong Foo, and he goes, "Oh, who'd you play in To Wong Foo?" And he goes, "Cappuccino Commotion." This kid pitch screamed like through the top of his head and ran through our apartment and ran down the hallway, went into the kitchen, went to the front door, ran back there, and I was like, what the hell's wrong with him? And he screams, he goes, "You have no idea," and he starts crying. Somehow somebody took a photograph of him and lifted my picture. This leather bar thought that I was beautiful, first of all. Second of all, to have a drag character in a leather bar near the dartboard, but it wasn't hit with darts. I was revered, there was candles, blah, 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 all this stuff. And because the man who owned the bar thought that my character was the prettiest and should have won, right? And you can't fight that, And he said that's what happened. And he and his best friend saw that movie almost every week, and they were like, 14, 15, something like that they saw it all the time, because he was like 19, 20 by the time I met him, so it was like 4 years later. And it was just incredible to see that impact. First of all, I'm in a leather bar at the height, and I couldn't be more fancy, foofy, feminine drag queen. And I've got, they've got candles around me as this beauty deity that this S&M gentleman in Kansas City thought that I was divine. I was like, all right.
So somewhere,
I got a free drink when I go to Kansas.
If you ever do a road trip to Kansas City and you stop in a leather bar and see Cappuccino Commotion, you'll know the story.
You never know. You never know how it affects people and what happens.
I love it.
It's great. It was wild.
So we'd like to take some questions from the audience.